So, I usually start my talks with, the classic, circle with, chemistry and physical and biology, and say, there's 3 pieces that make the Clean Water Act says you need to protect, and we're really good at the chemistry, we're not so good at the biology. But I decided not to do that because my charge was to talk about reflecting on 25 years of bioassessment. 25 years. And the worst part is in water quality regulation. So I have my career at EP up here, and I've basically touched a whole bunch of different programs. I'm a marine benthic ecologist, the worst kind. And I was hired to look at ocean outfalls. And then we did such a good job at turning data into information that they promoted us to work on monitoring and assessment. And then after work on TMBL standards and 303D work, and have a retirement sign somewhere in the off 2 years. So I said when I first started, I was working on ocean outfalls, doing coastal assessment. And there's basically 4 major outfalls in Southern California, and they spend about $1 to $2 million a year monitoring that. And my job was to review the $1 to $2 million a year for, let's say, San Diego, and basically decide whether or not they need to upgrade their plant or not. So it was an amazing program. It's like the only program in EPA where you're actually using data to make a decision. I know it sounds weird, but it's true. So in marine benthic ecology, we use what's called a triad approach. It's basically chemistry, community, and some toxicity data. And I work on doing that. So the challenge was, I probably should have done that. The challenge is that we were looking at these little circles where folks were monitoring, and one of those circles out there was like a reference site. We were trying to compare stuff that was happening around the outfall to the reference site and make a decision. Well, we didn't know if the reference site was impacted or not, right? And we were doing sort of like t-tests, which was probably a bad idea back then because things like pseudo-replication were an issue. So what we ended up doing is we worked with ORD and the EMAP pilot to basically take the $4 to $8 million worth of monitoring and basically spread it along the Southern California pipe. And that gave us the ability to look at the impact at the sites and compare it to the background. Also, because of this, we developed a benthic response index, sort of following the principles that stream ecologists use. The benthic response index, clever name, huh? And this allowed us to basically understand the impacts. So this has been sort of my game plan for the rest of my career at EPA, basically build monitoring programs, build indices, use it to inform management. So I worked at coastal oceans and estuaries section. We did such a good job of turning data into information that they said, we want you to move from water 7 to water 2.1, right? We want you to be the information generator, to turn information into data into information for management. And so that was sort of the goal. So I had never worked in, oops, this is not time for that. Okay, so the first step was to look for inland monitoring data. In that time, there wasn't a whole lot of inland monitoring data being collected by discharge. So it was very, very difficult. The second thing was to look at these state reports called the 305B report, which is like the state of the waters report, and the 303B list, which was basically the bad waters. And those were atrocious in 1992 and 1994. There was very little data put them together. Some of the assessments were drive-by. And so I pulled hair out of my head, and I decided that what we needed to do was to fix the 305B and 303B and get good data in those things so it could inform management. So I went to the first CABW, apparently it was in 1994, and this is an aside. When you're trying to do a 25-year retrospective. Your computer should not go back that far. And so I made a guess. I thought it was 1993 for the first one, but apparently it was 1994. And this was my sort of assessment. You know, that was nice, but I wouldn't really want to make it a regular thing. Still, I was impressed by the amount of work that Jim had done in getting regional boards to do rapid bioassessment at the time. Now, it wasn't a very coherent thing. People were using sort of the same methods, but folks were developing different indices. Some were developing indices, some weren't developing indices. So I said, well, that's kind of nice. And then this was a watershed moment for California. There was this Assembly Bill 982 by Cheney. And basically, it said, enough. The 303D is in a really bad shape. Dischargers and environmentalists all got together to fix this 303D program. And so, for the first time, they developed a policy on how folks were going to assess water quality. So, huge leap from everyone doing what they want to sort of framework. And this policy, I think it was Tom Sook, some of you know, inserted this language that you could use bugs, right, in 303D assessments with an associated pollutant. Now, it's not a great victory, but it was a minor victory as well. Proud of that. The second thing that this thing did is said, you know, we need a comprehensive statewide monitoring program to monitor all water bodies and all uses. And they said it's probably going to cost $115 million, 32 people, and they didn't have that. They had like 10 QI, about $24 million. So that was the beginning of SWAMP, which is the Surface Water Ambient Monitoring Program. So about this time, 98, 99, I started working with Jim Harrington and Pete Odie on this thing called EMAP, Environmental Monitoring Assessment Program. They've been doing pilots. I showed you the coastal pilot. They did pilots in the Vineyard Province. They've done a bunch of pilots everywhere. But they never tested EMAP on a broad continental scale. And so, thus was born the EMAP Western pilot. We said, yes, we will sign up. And we also, strong-armed ORD into giving us some extra sites in Southern California and some extra sites in Northern California. And that was the genesis of the Northern California IBI, Index of Environmental Integrity, and the Southern California IBI. So we were working with SWAMP to take that data and basically help SWAMP make a statewide assessment. The EMAP project was over in 2003, and we began to work with the non-point source program at the State Water Resources Control Board. And we said, we can use this program to begin to say something about the areas that you're concerned with, agricultural areas, forested areas. And so they gave us some money to continue this sort of EMAP design. We came up with a clever name, California EMAP, so CMAP. And we basically showed that agricultural areas are really hammered in a number of things. It was basically no surprise to a lot of people, but it was the first time we really quantified it. So then, the SWAMP program started building a lot of reports. And I was very proud that we got our first probability-based real 5G report. We took a bunch of the coastal work that was being done and a bunch of the inland work that was being done and put it together. Okay, we had EMAP, CMAP, and then the state board did something amazing. They basically said, we're going to take some of our $106. This is the money that EPA gives to the state of California. And they said, we want to spend 40% of that money and put it towards monitoring. And that's when I got involved. Well, that's when I physically, not physically, but whatever. And so we moved on to something called the perennial stream assessment. And that's been going on since 2008 to 2018. So we have, I can't do the math, a really long record of doing bioassessment in California. In 2008, we decided we needed to do a reference condition management plan, really just to set the foundation for developing statewide metrics. Most of the folks in the picture, you all know. One of those guys is not a stream ecologist. That would be me. I actually own the same shirt, the same shoes, and the same pants. In 2008, we started adding algae. We had been doing sort of chlorophyll, but we wanted to add algae as a new indicator. And so we developed a plan. So we had this pretty good plan. And so we asked Chris Yoder, who was from Ohio, but he'd done a lot of work with the EPA. And he was going around states evaluating how good states' bioassessment programs were. And so we came to California and he said, you guys are doing great. And he said these three things. He said, not on my screen, so I have to look up there. First, the water board should integrate this sort of bioassessment stuff into all of their programs, permits, TMDLs, all of those things. The state board should develop statewide bioobjectives. And the state board should also think about, what does Talbot say, cured aquatic life use. And so we said, that's great, and we're going to move on with that. And then at the 2008 Bioassessment Workgroup, John Bishop, who was the deputy director of the State Water Resources Control Board, basically said, I am very happy with the work that's being done, but we need to move it into regulation. I want bioobjectives in 3 years. Well, nothing moves in 3 years, but we started working on it in 2010 to 2013. It was a long and involved process with multiple stakeholders. And it sort of faltered on this issue of modified channels. What the hell do you do with places that are not perfect? We have a criteria that is supposed to be protective. We've got these places that will never be there. And so we kind of stumbled on that. But, looking at the bright side, we produced the CSCI, the California Stream Condition Index, as a part of this effort. We introduced a causal assessment framework for California that's been used. And so, glass half full. So, after the setback on the objectives, we were a little disappointed. So I got back on my horse. We went to work on something called the Healthy Watersheds Initiative. And so what the Healthy Watersheds Initiative was all about, sort of modeling the extent of healthy watersheds, not just bugs, but visible habitat and crab. I'm showing bugs here. And then mapping the stressors. And I just put up some that I think are very important for bugs and streams. And sort of putting them on this framework. We have vulnerability on one side and health on the other side. And really using that as a tool to understand which watersheds need restoration, or they're not so healthy, but they're not vulnerable, and which watersheds are healthy but very vulnerable that we need to protect. So that was sort of the framework. So that work is going on. And then we did, because we had started to work on algae, we started to develop algal metrics, and Betty Fetcher and others worked on this one, and we are now moving faster into the future. We have a draft hybrid ASCII, which is the algal index, and now we can sort of map the condition of algae across the state of California. This is draft. I just wanted to show you. And molecular methods are coming soon. So it takes a lot to look at these bugs and decide what they are. Molecular methods will be a quicker and cheaper way of getting this done. You know that issue about modified channels? When you look at the Central Valley, it's really hard to expect them to have really, really high quality habitat for bugs. Similarly, Southern California. So we know that these areas are going to be very, very difficult for objectives to be met. And so Rafi Mazur, who's in the audience, sort of put this together. So I can't explain all the details behind it, but here's the principle. The dark blue are the streams and areas that are really likely to be able to meet the objectives, right? And the ones that are reds are places where the objective will never be met. And then the light blue and the light red are kind of in between. And so, at the very, very top, you'll see there's a site that's underperforming. That's an area where we can sort of figure out what we can do to move that into the blue, right? Because it should belong in the blue. And similarly, there's a little red one that is doing better than it should. So we should evaluate why that particular site is doing well. What about that site is making it do better than it should be if it's having constraints? And I know this is a terrible slide because I kind of copied it from a bigger slide, but it's just sort of talking about how we're beginning to turn this bioassessment data into information. So the state board is working on a biostimulatory objectives framework that will include bugs and also algae nutrients. And the whole idea is to sort of figure out how we can protect the water body. And what this is, again, this is done by Rafi, is we set a threshold at a 10% reference, and we look at all of California, nitrogen, chlorophyll, percent cover, what percent is likely to meet the objective. And so it's a very graphic way of understanding what types of conditions we have and where we're going to have to do more work. And we can stare at these for hours. I don't want to go so long. So, I think after 25 years, I've sort of met my objective. We're getting environmental data from these regional monitoring programs. We're turning it into information. And we're beginning to drive policy, biostimulatory, biointegratory, and protecting and restoring water quality. And that will eventually be turned into actions to improve water quality. And I don't want to leave the message that's all that Swamp is doing, because we have, fish tissue monitoring program, we have a stream pollution monitoring program, we have a freshwater HAB program. We have lots of programs. You can ask me about it later. I'm not going to talk about it. That's all Swamp was. So there's a lot of stream monitoring in California, just a lot. And I think that we have just scratched the surface in terms of the amount of information that we've extracted from these things. And so there's probably some students out there. There's probably a number of master species here. And so I want to encourage folks to begin to dig in and take advantage of these things. And in closing, that is the image of a young scientist aspiring to do great things.
Very good. Any questions? Who's got the microphones?
How do you establish a baseline to measure healthy with the background of climate change and other natural changes that are going on?
Yeah, it's difficult, but we have a reference pool which I've shown you. We continue to monitor that reference pool, and as that reference pool moves with time, we'll have to begin to adjust. Probably not as Pete, you want to answer that question more sufficiently than I could? Where's Pete?
For the reference.
Yeah, the reference. All right. Any other questions? All right.
Thank you, Jerry.